welcome to October. Our theme for this entire year is spirituality in action, and that is the theme that the majority of the Centers for Spiritual Living are working with this year. There are a few who are not, and that's fine, but the majority of us are working with spirituality in action. And we've been working with the 10 prophetic justice principles by Dr. James Forbes from Riverside Church, but in New York, not here. And so the 10 prophetic justice principles, we're on prophetic justice principle number 9 now in October, and that is cherish the human family. So that is what we are going to be exploring this whole month. And before we get into anything else, I want to send a shout out to Jafan Seeley, who was here last week, and so wonderful. That was great. So thank you to Jafan. And I also want to acknowledge our choir. The harmonies last week, I was watching. So congratulations, I'm so excited. The choir will be here again on October 20th, and they'll be performing the whole thing, and it's going to be amazing and wonderful, I know and I trust. So I'm very excited and looking forward to that as well. Let's start with our focus statement today, shall we? So here we go with all the V's. All right, here we go. We embolden people to live their highest potential through the transformative power of love. Yes. So we're talking about cherishing the human family, and when we're talking about cherishing the human family, one of the values that we have here at Centers for Spiritual Living is the value of unity. And so that is what we are exploring here this morning. I thought what the children are experiencing this morning, they're talking about what is God, and so I thought that's a really great thing that they're talking about this morning, and it really ties in with our theme upstairs here of unity, because we know that Jihadi, right? So what does Jihadi stand for? I've shared it with you. God is all there is. Okay, so God is all there is. So if God is all there is, that is all that there is. There's only one power, one presence, one infinite eternal beingness, one love, one life, one, right? There's only one singular sensation. No. So that there's only one, right? So there is no power, there's only one power, so there is no power opposed to God. There is no other entity, there is no other thing that is outside of God itself. Right there in John, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and that which God did not create was never ever created. So if God didn't create it, it was never ever created, so therefore everything, everyone, the totality of all being, the totality of all creation has to be what? God itself made manifest, right? So creator and creation are one and the same. That creation is just a manifestation, an emanation, an impartation of this God stuff, this holy stuff, this divine stuff. That the who of who you are and what you are is the divine made manifest. And you can never, ever, 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 ever be separate from it. Every fiber of your being, every molecule, every atom, every subatomic particle, every quark, and every space in between is the divine made manifest. It is your very essence, it is your very nature. And it is not only your very nature, it is the very nature and essence of all of life, of all of creation itself. What makes us unique, though, is that we are self-aware. We are self-conscious. So we have awareness of who we are. We have awareness of what we are. We have that capability to think about and contemplate and navel gaze, if you will, about our existential reality, right? We have that ability. That's kind of what makes us unique. Or we think that's what makes us unique, perhaps. You know, I'm not a dolphin, so I don't know what it's like to be a dolphin, but I have a feeling with their very complicated brain structure that they're probably as smart or smarter than we are. But we don't know, right? So as far as we know, we're the only ones that are self-aware. Cats also, I think, can sometimes be self-aware, right? Yeah, and elephants, yeah. But that's kind of what makes us unique. So we then have the capability, we then have the self-ability, the self-will to forget then who we are, or to not remember who we are and what we are. And we have the ability then to choose to feel separate from that which we are, or not even necessarily choose to feel separate from, but just feel separate from, if we've never been exposed to anything that tells us that we're not separate from, depending on our socialization. Right? So when it comes down to it, when we experience unity, we experience a wholeness and an allness and a perfection and an alignment that feels like pure bliss, pure joy, pure peace, pure love. It is like a deep exhale, deep inhale, a deep exhale, that maintains and sustains us, that just, it is such a deep sense of peace and poise and, right? It's like a giant sigh of yummy deliciousness. And when we feel separate, we're not feeling the deliciousness, right? When we are experiencing separation or we're feeling separation, then what we have a tendency to experience, we have a tendency to experience fear, lack, limitation. We have a tendency then to experience that which we label evil. And then we try to anthropomorphize, make human, or give it some kind of an entity or some kind of a power, and we label it the devil, or we label it, in our philosophy perhaps, ego, or the little self, and we try to create a duality that does not exist. We try to separate ourselves and disown and push away that which we don't wish to experience, or that which we don't wish to see, that which we don't wish to acknowledge. And we try to otherize it. We try to make it separate from ourselves. But the only reason why we're experiencing that feeling is because we're already feeling separate, because we have forgotten, oh yeah, I'm the power and the presence of love on earth. Oh yeah, I'm actually peace on earth. Oh yeah, I'm joy to the world. Oh, that's who I am. And when we remember that, it's easier to, then we immediately snap out of the guck and the muck, or the guck and the muck. Equal opportunity. I don't want this side to feel like they're guck and muck. That we can separate, then we no longer are living in that guck and muck, and we have lifted ourselves out of the swamp or out of the icky water or whatever you want to call it. We've lifted ourselves out and up, and we have a new perspective. We can gain a new perspective. We can see rightly. We can see clearly. Love and fear cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Love and fear cannot occupy the same space and the same place at the same time. Love always cancels fear. When you're in love, when you are experiencing love, there is absolutely nothing to fear. Fear cannot exist. It just goes away. You are in pure love. It is pure bliss. And you are in love. You are experiencing love itself. And if we are in fear, then we're canceling out our awareness of the presence of love. If we're in fear, we're canceling out our presence of the awareness of love. So the two things cannot coexist at the same time. You're either in love or you're in fear. So where are you today? Good. And if you're in fear today, that's fine too. We just acknowledge and honor you right where you're at. There's no good or bad, right or wrong. If you're in a moment of fear or a place of fear today, then let's just acknowledge where we are with that and just be present with that. And in acknowledging and being present with it, guess what happens? We bring love to that. We bring love right there. Love then is possible in that moment. or in this moment. When we think of the human body itself, how do we start? We start with a single cell that then multiplies into several other little cells, right? Divides into other little cells. And all these little cells are exactly the same. And then somewhere in the process, the cells start to differentiate themselves. And they begin to form the neural tube. They begin to form brain cells and neurons. And then they begin to form bone, and they begin to form blood vessels and arteries and the heart and our organs and the liver, until we finally have a human form. But this human form, with all these different multitude of cells, started off with one cell dividing, and then a group of cells continuing to divide before they then started differentiating. Well, this is the same with, this is a really beautiful idea or a beautiful way of thinking about the universe itself. We start with one, and then it begins differentiating. And it begins differentiating, and it begins differentiating. But yet, it's all part of, and it is all comes from, it all emanates from the one source, right? So when we think about our bodies and our systems, our liver cells have a very specific function, very specific a very specific purpose, a reason to exist, yes? And our heart cells have a very specific reason and purpose. And our bone cells have a very specific reason and purpose. And our brain cells have a very specific reason and purpose. And our fingernail cells have a very specific reason and purpose. And our heart cells aren't going, oh, look at the liver cells, look at them. We don't like them, right? And our fingernail cells aren't looking at our lung cells and going, ew, I don't like what they're doing, right? What they do is they work in harmony and concert with each other. Every single cell is operating in cooperation with every other cell in the body, even though they're differentiated, even though a skin cell does not look the same as one of your heart cells or your stomach cells. Doesn't look the same, doesn't have the same function, doesn't have the same purpose, doesn't have the same reason for being, but yet they all work together in harmony. So what a great model this is when you think about the miraculousness of our human body. We start as one, we differentiate, we each have our own purpose and reason for being on the planet, our own drive, our own soul's calling, if you will. And we're here to work with each other in cooperation with each other to advance the consciousness of the universe, to advance the consciousness that's on our planet, to lift up and raise up, because that's ultimately the purpose, is to express life itself. That's ultimately the purpose, to express life, to express love. That's who we're here to be individually and collectively. But the ways that we go about doing that are individuated. They're differentiated. And we have the opportunity to come together and work together. So when we think about this, there is this unity in this wholeness, but there is not a uniformity in it, right? If we were all bone cells, what would we do? We couldn't move, we couldn't think, we couldn't lift our arms, we couldn't do anything if we were all just bone cells. And if we were all just muscle cells, then we have no structure to hang off of, so we still can't. I guess we could like flop across the floor like the blob. Right? So it's all each part and parcel is an integral part of the whole. And that's who we are too. We are all an integral part of the whole. So there is not a uniformity in the unity. There is actually a diversity in the unity, and that is to be honored and celebrated and recognized for what it is, because it adds value to the whole. It makes the whole integral. It makes the whole integrous, right? So with unity then comes responsibility. With self-determination comes responsibility. So we have the opportunity then to, when we feel separate, when we feel lost, when we feel in fear, when we feel ourselves believing in an otherness, when we see the other rather than seeing the other and otherizing, we have the ability, we have the opportunity to take responsibility for ourselves and to bring ourselves back into alignment, to bring ourselves back into the truth that we know that there is just this one life, and that this person sitting in front of me is the beloved made manifest in all their glory and all its glory. There may be some unskilled behavior. Lord knows there's enough unskilled behavior, right? There may be some unskilled behavior, but really at the heart of who they are, we are called to remember who they are and what they are. That what I see before me is the divine in them. The divine in me honors the divine in you. It's that namaste. It's that we recognize that there is just this oneness. And the idea of Ubuntu, which is I exist, I am because you are. So there is an interconnectedness, there is an interrelatedness that comes together. And so we have the opportunity to remember that. Not only do we have the opportunity to remember that, we have the responsibility to remember it. So where in our lives, then, do we forget? Where have you forgotten who you are? Where have you forgotten who your partner is? Where have you forgotten who your family is? Where have you forgotten who your friends are? Where have you forgotten who our brothers and sisters and siblings are? And how are you feeling about that? Where in your life have you otherized? Made somebody else the other? I was at a conference last week, but before I went to that conference, I was at another day-long conference here in Riverside. And it was on the issue of homelessness. And it was the Mayor's Faith Summit. And it was held at the Grove. And as my friend, Pastor Alfred Grace from Calvary Presbyterian said, it was all going along so well until that moment. And that moment was when there was a panel discussion happening, and it was a very informative and it was really good panel discussion about how faith communities can help and assist our homeless neighbors, and some of the work that's already going on in the city and work that we can do in the future, etc. And the gentleman, I'm going to use the word brother, because if I'm practicing oneness, then I have to see that, right? So, stood there from his place of privilege and said, pastors and rabbis in the room, you know that we can do all this homeless outreach and we can make a difference in their world, but we really haven't made a difference until we bring everybody to Jesus Christ. Pastors and rabbis. And that's when Pastor Alfred said, it was all going so well until that point. The table that I was at was clearly uncomfortable in that moment. The local rabbi was like, "That's it, I'm out of here," and I was like, shut down. Because it brought back stuff for me. It brought back my past. It brought back old beliefs and old ideas and old thoughts that I had of not enoughness, that I thought I had really done a lot of work around until that moment. And so my initial reaction was to shut down, and then my next reaction was to otherize. Oh, you know not of what you speak, right? Forgive them, for he knows not what he says. Forgive him, for he knows not who he is. Forgive him, for he knows not the truth. But that really wasn't coming from a heartfelt, loving space. That was coming from a place of, right? It was coming, I was not in that moment seeing the oneness. I was not in that moment experiencing the oneness. I was not in that moment seeing him as the beloved divine, with whom I am inextricably interconnected. I was not seeing him as an aspect of myself. I was seeing him as something way out there and other, to be angry toward, to be upset about, to be enraged by, to be victim of, to blame, to shame, right? So is that really unity? Is that really oneness? So in that moment, it was like, there's more work to do here. There's always more work. It's that proverbial onion that we never get to quite to the center of because it starts to sprout. But there was that moment of realization later, after talking with one of my other pastor friends, Pastor Julie Kelly of Hope Lutheran, but I was like, oh yeah, okay. This is an opportunity for me to really turn within and go within and remember the truth that I know. And the truth is that he too is the beloved, that he too is me, that we are part of this whole, that we have this, that we are doing this dance, and it is beautiful, and it is perfect, and it is just what it needs to be for the evolution of consciousness on the planet. And this is my opportunity here to do my work. And I have to say, it was really interesting for me because this shift was happening. I was very conscious of this shift happening when I was speaking with Pastor Julie Kelly, a Lutheran pastor. A Lutheran pastor. Not one of my CSL peeps, but a Lutheran pastor. And Michelle knows what that means. My sister knows what that means, is that my father was part of the Lutheran tradition. All of our grandparents were as well. But my father was from the more conservative side of the Lutheran tradition. And he took the position of love the sinner and hate the sin, which for me was very harmful because it felt as though that I was somehow wrong, that who I was somehow inferior and somehow wrong, and that I was unworthy of his love, let alone God's love. So the fact that I was speaking with Julie, Pastor Julie, a Lutheran minister, and having this epiphany, I was like, whoa, okay. I have come a long way. Because Earlier that day, I was way, way back. It's like, I have come a long way. And in that moment, I recognized my own healing, and I recognized how I was feeling around this gentleman, my brother, in ministry. I was like, okay, I can be at peace here. I can be in love here. I can be in truth here. And me standing in truth, me standing in principle, me standing in love is a reminder that there truly is only this one. Regardless of what's going on out here, there's only this one. And when I remember this, my life changes. And when my life changes, then the lives around me change as well, because we are inextricably part of the whole. So when we are called to do our own work, we are doing it individually for ourselves, but we're also doing it for the collective whole. We're doing it for each other. So it is about the unity. Unity is about responsibility, and that I get to take responsibility for my own life, for my own thoughts, for my own beliefs, for my own actions. And then collectively, I get to take responsibility, and we get to take responsibility for our thoughts, for our beliefs, for our actions. And that is the way we begin to change the world. That is the way we begin to see a world that works for everyone, the way we create a world that works for everyone, which is our vision here at Centers for Spiritual Living, a world that works for everyone and all of creation. And where it starts is it starts right here in unity. It starts by remembering, yes, I am that I am. And we can apply this to the larger world. We can apply this to the events that happened this week, with Amber Geiger being convicted of murdering Botham Jean in Dallas. We can apply this and see that, okay, I get to do my work so that I'm no longer a place, so that I'm not contributing to the institutionalized racism. I'm not contributing to and taking advantage of the systemics in place. That I am choosing to step out of that, and I'm choosing to take responsibility for my own life. I'm choosing to take responsibility for the part that I play in it. I'm choosing to take responsibility for changing the society and making the society different, so that some woman just does not walk into some other man's apartment and shoot him dead. Where I take responsibility for my part in the whole and changing my consciousness in the whole, so that that ceases to even be a possibility. And that is what we are called to do collectively. Take responsibility for ourselves, take responsibility for our part in the whole, so that there is not the possibility for these things to happen. Are you with me on that? Do you understand that? That when I feel less than, when I otherize the pastor from the Grove, when I otherize him, I'm contributing to the energy and I'm contributing to the consciousness of the otherness that then perpetuates something over here in Dallas. That then makes it possible, right, for these things to occur. So I have the opportunity, and each of us has the opportunity to step fully into alignment. We're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for each other, we're doing it for the collective whole. Because you can't do it individually and not affect the whole, and you can't do it on the whole and not affect the individual. It's all one. And that's where we come with unity. And so I call you this week to look and to analyze, where in your life are you otherizing? Where in your life are you making somebody else wrong? Or are you making yourself wrong? Where are you perpetuating shame and blame? And are you willing to stop it? Are you willing to put your foot down and say, no more? And then begin acting from there. Yes? So the key word today is unity. Yes? And our other favorite word, take 100% responsibility for, is responsibility, right? Responsibility. So unity and responsibility combine. We're self-aware, we're self-awake. We have the responsibility to live from a place of unity, and so it is. So I invite our practitioners to please come forward. This is the first Sunday of the month, and I invite our practitioners to form a line here across the front of the sanctuary. And so every month, at the beginning of the month, we have the opportunity to participate in what we call the prayer wall. And this is an opportunity for the community to come forth and receive prayer from our practitioners. There's space over here. It gets really crowded by the piano, so keep on. There you go. And so what we do here is we do our prayers, our affirmative prayers, are 5 steps. We recognize that the divine is all there is. That's what we've been talking about today, that God is all there is, that there is a unity. First, we recognize that. Secondly, we unify ourselves with that. We bring ourselves into a conscious awareness that all that is, I am. And then we move into a realization. And the realization is claiming that which we wish to experience more of in our life. And then we give thanks for it, and then we release it. So here on the screen there, you have words today to choose. You should choose what you wish to experience today in your life. So if you are willing to give up the otherness, and you are willing to live your best life, what would that look like for you today? Would it look like abundance or harmony or order or love or creativity or wisdom? What would that look like for you today? What would you wish to choose to affirm today? So I invite you to begin lining up here in the center of the sanctuary, and then as you come forward, just speak your name and that which you choose to claim for yourself today, that you choose to experience for yourself today. So go ahead and start lining up. All right, so I'll start off here. So I recognize that there's just this one power, one presence, one infinite eternal beingness. This one I choose to call love. I choose to call it God. I choose to call it harmony, order, wisdom, peace, joy, freedom. It is the all in all. It was in the beginning, it always was, and always will be, and it is right here and right now. For truly what I know is that God is. And it is this isness that is present here and now. It is this isness that is always present wherever we are, wherever we move. It is just this one life, this one eternal beingness, having its expression and its way as all of life, all of creation, bringing itself forth into the manifest universe. And as I know that there's only this one, then I have to be one with it. I am one as it. It lives, moves, breathes, and has its being in, through, and as me, and I in it. I am inseparable from it. It is the totality of my being, but I am not the totality of it. I am a spark. I am a center for the living spirit. And it radiates through me, pours through me out into the world, out into greater creation, as its beautiful, divine expression of love, of light, of joy, of peace, of harmony, of abundance, of freedom. And as I know that this is true of me, I know that this is true of everyone present here this day. And so I allow the word to continue with the beloveds in front of me as they step forward and receive prayer. And so I give thanks for the word spoken here this day, both aloud and in silence, recognizing that it is already done in the mind of the divine, that it is already made manifest. I give thanks for this beloved community who has come together in common unity, community, who gathers each week and throughout the week in consciousness and in love, to be the power and the presence of the divine in larger and greater ways in the larger community. I'm so grateful and thankful for the willingness of each individual, recognizing the call upon their heart, the call upon their life, to be that power and the presence always, and in all ways. I simply give thanks for it all, and I release this word into the law, knowing it is done, knowing that it is so, knowing that nothing ever need be added. It is already complete. I let it be, and so it is.